got the better of Buxton. Puts it into an area. Keogh, Zamora! Unbelievable! Company. Coutinho! Liverpool lead again! Darmian trying to close him down. Sanchez going, oh no! Pick that one out! It's 3 inside 20 minutes.
Hello, welcome to the Inches Wide Podcast, episode 4. I'm Jake Beals Hobson.
And I'm Dan Godfrey.
Today we're joined by Matt Dawson. Plenty of talking points from this week's sport, including United's shock exit from the Champions League last night.
We'll also be talking about the Premier League with Bournemouth and Stokes wins over Chelsea and City respectively, and the FA Cup.
Yeah, and we'll touch upon Riyad Mahrez, who again has been in form and on fire for Leicester City. Plenty to come. So a crazy weekend of sport, guys. Obviously top 9 Premier League sides all dropping points other than Leicester and Arsenal. We're now the top 2 in the Premier League. Today I'm glad that I've been joined by Matt Dawson, who's an Arsenal fan, who's here to talk about Arsenal's progress this season. Obviously a massive result in terms of the Premier League table. How do you think Arsenal are going to do this season?
Well, I think we've got a lot of potential, but you've touched on it in previous weeks about injuries and things like that, and it will all hinder on that, to be honest. But I mean, it's one of the most open Premier Leagues I've seen in quite a while. So I mean, anything could happen, to be honest.
Yeah, and obviously you've been an Arsenal fan as well, Dan. Obviously you looked at the weekend as well and thought that Arsenal's chances might have improved.
Yeah, definitely. It's looked as if it's been a bit disappointing. We've dropped a few points in last couple of weeks, but obviously I'm trying to take an unbiased look at things. But you asked me as an Arsenal fan. I'll tell you as an Arsenal fan, to be fair, we were expected to beat Sunderland, but we did the job in the end. So now we're second in the league, and it's just Leicester above us. And now I'm going to go on to ask Matt, how influential do you think Mesut Ozil is in particular to this Arsenal team?
He's been brilliant. I mean, he's struggled in his time so far, but this season he's just been unbelievable, and especially when we've had injuries with Sanchez and Walcott and Oxlade-Chamberlain and people like that, and Ramsey, of course. He's just been on another level compared to everyone else on the pitch, to be honest.
And we're talking about Arsenal's league form here as well. We're going to go on to the Champions League in a bit because there's plenty to discuss there, especially what happened last night with Man United. So Arsenal, very briefly in the Champions League, Olympiacos away is the fixture tonight. They need to either win by 2 clear goals or by a 1-goal margin and score at least 3. So how can you see that one panning out? If Arsenal start well, can they do the job in Greece tonight? Olympiacos are still favourites to qualify.
I definitely think we can do the job. I mean, I don't think we'll lose, but I can see us winning but going out at the same time. But I think if we do get a quick start, then I reckon we will go through, yeah.
And Jake as well, your opinions on Arsenal? I know you're not an Arsenal fan, but like Arsenal and the title race in general, how do you see Leicester panning out and the Manchester clubs as well?
It's good to see Leicester still there at the top, coming into mid-December now, and to see Leicester in the top 4 at Christmas is obviously a massive shock. But in terms of Premier League standings come the end of the season, it'd be good to see Leicester in the top 4. But in terms of Arsenal, I really think Arsenal now, whether they qualify for the next round of the Champions League or not, I really think Arsenal have got a big chance at taking the Premier League by its horns and actually getting to the top again, because Man City just look hapless against Stoke. Obviously we'll move on to that soon, but City showing that with the likes of Company, Yaya Toure and Aguero not in the squad, that they really, really did struggle this weekend.
Yeah, Man City, of course, had a dreadful game against Stoke by their standards. City do seem to have that sort of aura of inconsistency about them. They had a good result against Mönchengladbach last night and finished top of their Champions League group, so they'll be hoping for a good draw there, and they're more or less flying the flag for the English sides at the minute, with Arsenal and Chelsea not definitely through yet. Chelsea should do the job tonight, but we'll move on to that shortly. Man City, of course, against Stoke, Arnautovic, Shaqiri, Bojan, Shawcross, they all ran the show in my opinion. Arnautovic got both the goals set up by Shaqiri. Stoke could easily have scored about 5 or 6. It was that bad for Pellegrini.
It could have turned into a rout at one point. I watched the game and I thought that Shaqiri was incredible. It took a while to get to find his feet in the league, but I think he's finally coming through as a good signing for Stoke. Obviously, when people saw that he'd gone to Stoke, a few eyebrows were raised. Obviously, been at Bayern Munich and Inter Milan, and now to Stoke, and it's he wouldn't have thought it's a club that really suits him, but I think the style of play that they've got going on at the minute is really working for them. Obviously, Stoke got a reputation of playing a bit of hoofball, a bit of aggressive play, but with the likes of Bojan and Shaqiri up tops, as well as Arnautovic, who got the 2 goals, it's really, really impressive from a Stoke fan's point of view, and hopefully they can push on towards European spots, because with performances like that, anything can happen.
It's the thing with Stoke. I respect their style of play a lot more now than I used to. I think Mark Hughes has injected a good bit of style into Stoke City's play, and they're not seen as that same hoofball side anymore. Arnautovic he's an absolute wind-up merchant, but he's a phenomenal footballer. And Shaqiri, there's no doubt in his ability and his talent. They signed him at 12 million, which is cut price in my opinion. He's still only 24, I think, and he's played for 2 of the European elite.
Yeah, he's a Champions League winner as well.
And a Champions League winner, that's phenomenal. Stoke are managing to pick up players like that. Bojan was so highly rated as a teenager.
So cheap as well. Bojan, they got him for such a cheap price, less than 3 million, I think, something like that.
And he suffered with injuries as well. He's coming back to that sharpness now. Stoke are still 11th in the table at the minute, but they're still only 4 points outside the top 5, and that's the beauty of the Premier League.
Yeah, it's looking as good as it's ever been coming into December. I think you've got to look at, obviously we touched upon last week how the top 10 was separated by just 9 points. Well, they're still separated by, the top 11 now are separated by just 10 points, all the way back to Stoke, up to Leicester, and you've got to expect Leicester to drop off come the end of the season. So for Arsenal on 30 points, Man City and Man United both on 29, and Tottenham even on 26. How important was it that Liverpool dropped points this weekend? Obviously beaten 2-0 by Newcastle at St James's Park. It's not been the easiest of places to go. Obviously Newcastle's away form's also been poor, but a massive 3 points in terms of Newcastle's survival hopes. I really think they'll stay up by the end of the season. But how important is it for you two guys that Liverpool dropped points as Arsenal fans?
Well, I think Liverpool are certainly to be considered. I mean, Klopp's done wonders with them. There was going to come a point where they come crashing back down to earth, and that did happen at St James's Park. McLaren got his bit of fortune, and fair play to him. He got a good performance out of that Newcastle side. They've got that big club mentality that I think will keep them up. As for Liverpool, there are quite a lot of comparisons made to Tottenham in that. I know Jamie Carragher said at the start of the season that the real big clubs aren't really too worried about them, but now they're both being considered as potential title challengers.
And Matt, how important was the Moreno offside come the end of the game in terms of the context of the result of the game?
Well, it was a great goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Whether he meant it or not, it was a world-class goal.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think it had that much of an effect on the game, in all honesty. But I mean, what a result for Newcastle as well, in terms of the bottom 3 as well.
Yeah. Well, you look at the table now. Obviously, Aston Villa still miles away in the context of how many points that they need. More than 6 now. They need 7 points, I think it is, to even equal Bournemouth. They've got the worst goal difference in the league as well. But Newcastle now joint level points with Norwich and Bournemouth in 18th. Norwich and Bournemouth in 16th and 17th respectively. Do you think Newcastle will stay up, Matt?
Do I think Newcastle will stay up? I think they will, just about. I think they've got just about enough quality in their squad.
Yeah, Wijnaldum showed that it was.
And they're a big Premier League team. I mean, it'll be sad to see them go down again and have to come back up.
What about you, Dan? Do you think Newcastle will stay up, or do you think they'll suffer at the?
Yeah, I think they've got that. I think they've got that mentality. I was quite critical of McLaren last week, but he should know how to keep a team up, in my opinion. But the talent that Newcastle have got on the pitch and the mentality they've got, I think that should see them over the line ahead of sides, like, with all due respect, like Bournemouth and Norwich. But I can still see. I think Bournemouth and Norwich will both go down. But then it begs the question. That should mean that Sunderland are staying up, because Aston Villa really look doomed at the minute, and I don't think Remy Gard is too convincing for me.
No. Well, obviously we haven't really talked about Bournemouth, but I agree with the performance of the entire weekend up there with Stoke against Manchester City. But Bournemouth, if you didn't already notice, they beat Chelsea 1-0, a Glenn Murray header late in the game. And Chelsea obviously still struggling in 14th, only 2 points above relegation. Now, who would have thought that at the start of the season? Glenn Murray's came on and scored a header, like I said. How important was that result in terms of Bournemouth's season and survival chances, Matt?
Well, I think it was huge. I mean, obviously they got that late draw against Everton a week before, and that to bring that momentum into Chelsea, and then obviously grab that 3 points was quite incredible. I mean, especially if you consider some of the injuries that they've had. I mean, sort of Atsu and Callum Wilson, people
Tyrone
like
Mings, Max Gradle, all being pushed out
all
to
those types of players.
end of the season. Also, Dan, obviously Chelsea considered to be title favourites, or definitely up there at the start of the season. How important is it that a team like Chelsea is struggling to allow a potential new title winner this season? Obviously, being Arsenal fans, you two, you obviously want to see Arsenal up there, and they are up there and they're ready. But in terms of teams such as Leicester, Tottenham, Liverpool, teams that don't usually get into the top four and didn't manage it last season, how important is it that that fourth place is now available?
I think it is massively important, because clubs are always going to get better. There's always going to be more and more money being injected into the Premier League. All these clubs are going to be making huge signings, and then you've got clubs like Leicester who don't quite have the budget. So they're the ones who you would expect to kind of drop off. Crystal Palace, I mean, they're sixth. They're joint on points with West Ham and Liverpool.
Yeah.
So I mean, that begs the question as to whether they can build for a European place. But I think Arsenal, City, and United will keep their places in the top four, and Tottenham and Liverpool, I think, are going to be battling it out for fourth. Chelsea might have to settle for a Europa League spot.
Well, yeah, that's if they manage that. But I mean, even if they don't, it might not be an entirely bad result for them. They can concentrate on next season without having to go abroad to play midweek.
Yep.
But obviously, we'll record this on a Wednesday, and we've recently just found out that Swansea have lost the manager, the party company with Gary Monk. Has it come at the right time, or do you think he deserved a bit more time there?
Definitely deserved a bit more time.
He's done well with what he had, the resources that he had. I think his signings have been pretty poor, but yeah, as you say,
I think that same answer goes for quite a lot of managers, though. I don't think every signing you can make is fantastic, and some of the players that he has sort of bred in at Swansea, like Jordi Amat, I think is a decent centre half, and he's out of choice at the minute. Montero is absolute top class. I remember him playing against Arsenal last season.
Kind of Chambers apart, didn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. Gave Chambers a torrid time at right back, but and I mentioned all this last week that Monk should be given more time, and he exceeded expectations, getting Swansea comfortably into the top half last season, getting some top results on the way, and now all of a sudden are the Swansea board seriously considering him to not be as good as Laudrup just because Laudrup gave him the League Cup? I'm not sure.
Well, obviously Gary Monk's been unfortunate with that. Obviously Swansea through and through. He was ex-club captain before he was main manager. They were trounced at the weekend at home by Leicester. Obviously Leicester being an informed side. We'll come on to Mahrez soon. Who do you think is going to be the right replacement? Obviously, Brendan Rodgers has been tipped to take back over there. Matt, who do you think is going to be the right man for the job in terms of the candidates that are available at the moment?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see who does come in. I think sacking Monk, they obviously have someone in mind and someone lined up that can come in. I mean, going into the Christmas period with a big run of games, it will be important to get results. So, I mean, Brendan Rodgers, I think he's done the job with Swansea already.
Yeah.
Di Matteo as well. I mean, those are two that stand out for me.
Well, yeah, obviously Di Matteo's a Champions League winner, so whether he'll want to take a job at Swansea when they're only a point above the drop zone, it begs the question to think that whether Brendan Rodgers will want to take it as well. Obviously, he didn't have much of a good time with Liverpool last season, at the start of this season as well. But it's going to be a tough job to take over there. There just seems to be a lack of morale in the camp. I think a few injury problems as well have caused a few problems for Swansea, but it's a shame to see them struggling because I think they're a good football inside.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they've got some good talent in that squad, like John Joe Shelvey staking his claim for the England squad. Gomez when he gets back into form. Montero, as we mentioned. Fabianski in goal. I really rate him.
Ayew as well.
Ayew, yeah. I mean,
he's been probably the best signing that Monk made.
Yeah,
on a free transfer as well.
On a free, yeah, definitely. He's turned out to be a pretty decent player, and he might be the difference between Swansea staying in the Premier League and Swansea not staying in the Premier League.
I still sort of visually don't see Swansea in the same bracket as the relegation threatened sides. I see him as a mid-table side.
Yeah, me too.
I see him with your Southamptons, your Stokes, your Evertons.
Yeah, exactly. And before we move on to the Champions League of last night, can we quickly talk about Riyad Mahrez, who again has been
what a player,
unbelievable at the weekend, getting his hat-trick for Leicester at the weekend, obviously against Swansea, which obviously the nail in the coffin for Gary Monk. But Riyad Mahrez, can you really sum him up in 3 words, Dan?
majestic, exciting, form. I was going to say in form, but yeah, that's 2 words in itself. But yeah, Mahrez, very exciting footballer, and I say majestic because him and Vardy have taken the Leicester the Leicester impact as their own. They've been absolutely fantastic. They've been at the forefront of Leicester's success in the first 15 games of the season. Obviously, we're going to make a concerted effort not to mention Vardy as much now. We've absolutely banged on about him. We've absolutely chatted and got banged on about him for the last 3 weeks since he's carried on scoring. He was unlucky not to score, but Mahrez absolutely took the game by the scruff of the neck, and I think we'll blame Mahrez for Gary Monk's sacking for now.
Yeah, I know. And how important is it, Matt, that Leicester can keep hold of Mahrez and Vardy come the January transfer window?
Absolutely key. I mean, without them, they wouldn't be top. I think it's safe to say that, especially with Vardy's goals and Mahrez. Obviously, I think he scored 10 this season.
Yeah,
now,
and he's got a good
incredible
level of assists as well. And it's up there with Ozil as one of the top assist getters. And I think I saw a stat. Was it Vardy and Mahrez's goals of the equivalent of the goals that have been scored by Manchester United this season or something like that?
Yeah, and United, we can criticise them all we want, but they've still got the best defence in the league, and their goal difference is 10, so their attack can't be too bad either. But in the previous 15 games, obviously there's doubts about it now, but Vardy and Mahrez have also been the only 2 players to be involved in more Premier League goals than Mesut Ozil this season as well.
Well, obviously we touched upon Man United. We're going to talk about it very soon about the Champions League last night. But just before we move on to the Champions League, Manchester United, have got the best defence in the league, like you say. But last night they suffered another injury crisis. Darmian going off the pitch. A lot of United fans are not really taking a great load of sympathy for him. They don't think he's performed to the level that they feel that he can. And a young lad came on. Was it Borthwick Jackson or something like that came on?
I was quite impressed by him, to be honest.
And I watched the game and I thought he played pretty well. How important are the injury crises of the top sides going to be come the end of the season? Obviously Arsenal struggling with injury at the minute. Manchester United struggling. Smalling might even be out as well. What do you think about injuries come the January transfer window, Dan? Yeah,
it's the key players and I think Van Gaal is more likely than Wenger to make reinforcements, but the problem is Wenger tends to make. The problem for Man United is Van Gaal tends to make rather inaccurate reinforcements. I think
they need goals at the moment more than anything.
And they've sent James Wilson out on loan, which
means
their only recognised attackers are Rooney, and you can say about him, I don't think he's an out-and-out striker personally. I think he's that number 10 role is good for him,
and that's about
behind Martial. And then they've got Fellaini, who's never been a striker. He never will be a striker.
Yeah, and I don't understand. They've sent out James Wilson on loan to Brighton, who scored at the weekend, by the way. And they brought Nick Powell back into the side. It was basically the forgotten man, and he played last night for a bit. And he just didn't look up to scratch at all. And it's got to beg the question, really. Januzaj's on loan at Dortmund, obviously not really a striker, but an attacking player that they raved about for such a long time. I think it's just got to be crucial that United bring in an actual striker that can help out Martial this January transfer window.
I thought it was weird that they got rid of Hernandez as well.
Yeah, Hernandez.
I was about to mention that. I really
Hernandez was a massive player for United, even as an impact sub.
And he's knocking in goals for Leverkusen. Real Madrid took him on loan.
Exactly.
And he was scoring at Madrid when he came on. He weren't the number 1 striker, but when he came on, he scored for fun. So
I completely agree with Matt there. He's made a good point, and they got rid of Van Persie, which I think was probably the right decision. It was time for him to move on. They got rid of Welbeck to Arsenal at the end of the transfer window last season. Obviously he's been injured anyway, but as far as United are concerned, they've got rid of players that they shouldn't, and I think I saw a tweet last night that Van Gaal he's almost trying to reinforce remake a philosophy at United, recreate one that it's just trying to prove how clever he is, and it's backfiring.
Well, the problem is they've Van Gaal's put his trust in a young lad, 18, 19-year-old Anthony Martial. Rooney's out of form, so the entire weight on the shoulders of Martial at such a young age, he's got such a job to do. Obviously, with the likes of Wilson being sent out on loan, obviously, like you said, Hernandez being sold as well, it's going to be crucial for him to bring in a striker this January window. As we're talking about Manchester United, we'll move on to the Champions League now. Obviously, they went out last night, 3-2 defeat by Wolfsburg, who've been under par to say the very least this season. It came as quite a shock really for Manchester United. They scored twice last night, which is not a bad way to go out. But do you think that their exit is down to poor management, or do you think the players just really not up to it, Matt?
I wouldn't say the players aren't up for it. I think it is purely a lack of goals. Like we've already said, that they are keeping clean sheets. Their defence is looking tight despite some of the injuries they've had. But obviously, I think it is down to Van Gaal as well. But he's got to find a way to find goals in that too.
Yeah, exactly. And Dan, obviously Rooney needs to find his form. It's going to be crucial coming the end of the season. A lot of Man United fans think they're nailed on for a Champions League spot this season, but they're in 4th place now with Tottenham, Liverpool, Palace and West Ham all lurking behind them. Do you really think they're going to get top 4? I know we're drifting away from Champions League a little bit, but when you look at last night, do you really think that they've got the quality that they need to get back into the Champions League?
I think that they'll get the quality, and I think that's still. I still think that's why they'll finish in the top 4. If Van Gaal wasn't, if he was to be stubborn and to carry on with what United have got, they just seem to be depleted. They seem to be patched up. The most crucial game against Wolfsburg last night, and they've put about 5 youngsters in their side. They had Guillermo Varela played at fullback. Borthwick Jackson had to come on.
Yeah.
Smalling has been like their main defender, and if he's out, then there's a real problem
like I
there.
said,
Nick Powell coming
well.
back into the
Nick
squad.
Powell out of nowhere.
I mean, you can't be doing that in a crucial match day 6 in the Champions League group stage, and they've been made to pay the price. And then Thursday nights, the longer they stay in the Europa League, that'll scupper their league form.
Yeah, exactly, because obviously they've got to play Thursday night football.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah, and if they're travelling here, there and everywhere, and whether they stay for the long term or not, the fatigue of the players is going to be a big problem come the weekend.
Especially with how patched up their squad is at the beginning of December.
Yeah, exactly. So a massive January coming up for Van Gaal and for Manchester
Same goes
United.
for Arsenal.
Well, yeah, exactly. Arsenal hit by injury problems, but Arsenal have decent reinforcements. They've got experienced reinforcements, whereas Manchester United are relying heavily on the youth side. Obviously, Paddy McNair was another player they used last weekend.
Yep.
And a lot of reliance on youth players to come in, but I just don't think it's the right time to be throwing them in at the deep end. It's such a crucial time in the season now. But yeah, Manchester United out of the Champions League. That's one side gone. Manchester City qualify with flying colours. Eventually beat 4-2 Borussia Mönchengladbach. Do you really rate Man City's chance in the Champions League, Matt?
This year I think I do actually, but I mean that depends on Aguero. If he stays fit and scores goals in the Champions League, then I think there will be a threat. Obviously, we've seen in recent years that they haven't been able to quite do the job, but this season that they are looking good.
Yeah, well, all 3 of us was at the Etihad Stadium not long ago to watch them beat Sevilla with a last-minute goal. Kevin De Bruyne with the winner. How important is De Bruyne going to be in terms of Man City's season? Not only in the Premier League, but in the Champions League as well, Dan?
Yeah, he's a consistent player, and he didn't quite get the rub of the green at Chelsea. And he's gone to Wolfsburg, and he's hit some real form there, and it would have been a blow for them to lose him as well. But yeah, he's come into his own at Man City, and he's lived up to his hefty price tag. And the way he works, I mean, like some City fans are even forgetting that Silva's injury, because he and Sterling have done so well behind Aguero and more recently Bonny.
Bonny scoring again last night as well.
Exactly, and I mean Man City have got that depth and they've got that financial backing, and I think out of all the English sides, I would back City to go furthest in the Champions League. They've been naive in Europe because they've only just started playing in the Champions League.
Yeah, no real experience.
They haven't. Yeah, and they've approached European games like they've approached Premier League games, and they've been going out at the group stage of the last 16. I think now they know the procedure a bit more.
It's been a tough group as well. A lot of United fans arguing that their group was a lot tougher than Man City's, but I really think City had a much tougher group. Mönchengladbach doing pretty well. Obviously, they beat beat Bayern Munich at the weekend as well. So to go into the City game to lose 4-2 after that result at the weekend was a shocker. Sevilla, obviously Europa League winners last season, so they've got the quality, and you can't really argue against Juventus. As well, is it Juventus in the league? They had Juventus in the group. Obviously, Champions League finalists last season as well. So City's group to come top of that is a real good feat. And I honestly think City have got any chance of getting into the semi-final and probably even further if they can stay injury free. Staying on the Champions League, Arsenal and Chelsea both play tonight. We've got Matt in the studio obviously today as an Arsenal fan. Do Do you rate Arsenal's chances of going through? Obviously, we've talked about it already about Olympiacos and what's going off tonight. But if Arsenal do get through, can you see them getting any further than the round of 16?
Probably not. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we do have some good players that have been performing well this season. Obviously, Ozil, Sanchez, those kind of players. But finishing second in the group, providing we do go through tonight, we'll be facing one of the bigger teams again. And I just don't think we have the capability to go away and win somewhere such as like Barcelona or Real Madrid.
Yeah, well, you've got to expect that you get a top side like that, but there are chances of getting a side such as Zenit. Obviously, Zenit have won every game up till now in the group stage, but on paper, if Arsenal plays Zenit over 2 legs, then you could possibly see that they might pull it off. So hopefully, if you get through tonight and pull off a team like Zenit in the next round, I think a side like that obviously big game experience might be a problem. Zenit St. Petersburg, but I think in terms of English sides, Chelsea obviously played tonight, struggling heavily in the Premier League. The form in the Champions League's not been too bad. They've had a pretty easy group, you could say, and they should go through tonight. Do you rate Chelsea's chances in the Champions League, Dan?
Chelsea in the Champions League, I think it's sort of, it lifts the Premier League burden off their shoulders, and they play with a freedom that they don't play with in their domestic games.
Obviously, Willian's been so important as well.
Willian's been one of their shining lights this season in a very dull, dark season so far. Their Champions League campaign, I think, is sort of a stress release. If as it were, from their Premier League problems. So I can see their Man City doing pretty well. Obviously, it depends on the draw and it depends on whether Chelsea win their group. Chelsea have probably got about a 95% chance of qualifying tonight. Obviously, it's not mathematically done yet. If they have a catastrophe against Porto and
who would argue against that after the season that they've had?
I mean, yeah, but I think
Mourinho's old side as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Casillas, the man that he was said to ruin, could end up ruining Mourinho tonight. We can't rule it out, but I think Chelsea will go through. I think they'll edge about a 1-0 tonight, and then they'll go through and they'll be able to rebuild in the Champions League. As for Arsenal, I just wanted to bring up the point. Remember Liverpool when they won the Champions League in Istanbul? That season 2005, they had to beat Olympiacos by two goals.
Yeah, so
in their
very similar.
In their last game.
Obviously went on to win the Champions League. I was going to touch upon it earlier, but obviously it's fairy tale stuff again, isn't it, really? If they do manage it against Olympiacos, then who knows? Anything can happen in the Champions League. I mean, Chelsea won it 3 seasons ago, beating Bayern Munich in the final, the last time an English side won it. But yeah, just before we move on to the FA Cup from the weekend, I want both of your predictions for who's going to win the Champions League. I'll start with you, Matt. I want to know who's going to win the Champions League in your opinion and why.
Barcelona, because of Messi, Suarez and Neymar.
Is that's simple?
That's simple.
Yeah, that's simple. And with you, Danny, are you the same?
Bayern Munich, because I think they'll just be a little bit too good for an out of form Messi, Suarez and Neymar on one day that happens to be a Champions League final. And because I just want to disagree with Matt to spice things up a bit, Barcelona are too strong.
So do you both think of Bayern Munich Barcelona final?
I'd agree with that.
If that's the way it lines
up,
then yeah, I think the pair of them just edge out Real Madrid for me. They won 8-0 last night, but we won't go into that too much.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, and obviously Benitez is at Real Madrid and they've been struggling a little bit this season. Obviously, they went out of the Copa del Rey in weird fashion the other week, playing an ineligible player, Cheryshev. But yeah, we'll not talk about the La Liga. We'll probably save that for next week. That might be a decent topic of conversation. But in terms of the Champions League, that's pretty much it for now. Obviously, Arsenal and Chelsea both play tonight. We're all rooting for the English side to go through, especially Arsenal with 2 Arsenal lads in the studio.
I'll just say one last thing quickly. It seems weird, like I wouldn't even like everyone's slagging off the English sides in the Champions League, doubting their ability, but I can't rule out one of them maybe trying to push it and go all the way, because they seem to get results when they least expect it and disappoint when it's all piled on them, much like the English national side.
Yeah, similar to the English national side, which we'll talk about quite a lot in this
FA
show.
Cup now, yeah?
Yeah, we'll move on to the FA Cup now. In terms of shocks and big games this weekend, there wasn't really many. I mean, White Hawk, the southern side, obviously Dan a southerner as well, they managed to scrape a 1-1 with Dagenham and Redbridge at Dagenham and Redbridge as well in the last minute and last gasp equaliser. They've got Dagenham and Redbridge at home in a replay, and the winner plays Everton away. How crucial is a fixture like that for a team like White Hawk?
I've seen White Hawk play plenty of times. I know them very well. I used to work in their division with Gosport Borough, and they've played them in quite a few league fixtures. And in actual fact, White Hawk are their bogey side as well. In the last couple of years, White Hawk stayed up by a point in the Conference South in their first season in that division. Then they had a fair old injection of money. They've been signing league players. They signed Callum Driver from West Ham. They signed John Paul Kissock, who used to play for Everton. Players like that. They've got a really strong squad now.
Do you think they'll pull it off?
I think they will. I think they'll beat Dagenham. I had 25 quid on White Hawk to win at Dagenham, and they drew 1-1. Obviously, Dagenham have been struggling this season. The FA Cup is the FA Cup, and White Hawk is a difficult place to go. They've got a sloping pitch cut into a hill in the country area of Brighton. Dagenham won't like that one bit.
Yeah, in terms of teams still left in it from lower leagues, obviously Salford City have been the fairy tale team of the round so far of the FA Cup. They drew 1-0 with Hartlepool. Probably deserve more out of that. I watched that game on Friday night. They will play Hartlepool at Hartlepool now, and hopefully get through to the next round. In terms of so near but yet so far, Northwich Victoria, who have done it before. They were 2-0 up going into the 83rd minute and ended up losing the game 3-2. How devastating must that be for a team like that, Matt?
You'd be gutted, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course.
For a team that low in the football pyramid to be 2-0 up with, what was it, 7 minutes left, and
we saw something similar in the Championship with Charlton and Brighton as well. To be 2-0 up and then to lose out and lose 3-2. It's just devastating, heartbreaking stuff, really. I
mean, I kind of sense where they're coming from. I don't want to bring up memories of it, but 4-4 against Newcastle a couple of years ago. I mean, that just says it all. So
yeah.
I'd prefer to use the one where Arsenal were 4-0 down against Reading and beat them 7-5. But obviously Northampton, they've done the job in the end, and no one can argue with that. Games are played over 90 minutes.
High in the League 2 table as well.
They are indeed. What a win that would have been for Northwich, even if they could have forced them to a replay and then taken them back to Northwich. The shock of the round was probably still Wickham winning at Millwall in the last minute. You had Colchester coming from behind to beat Altrincham at home. I fancied Altrincham to get something out of that. They were unlucky. And then obviously the ones that weren't giant killings anywhere near, Welling losing 5-0 at home to Carlisle. What a long journey back that was that would have been for Carlisle if they'd lost.
I just want to touch upon my home side. I'm from Doncaster, and Doncaster have got Stoke City at home. And it was good to see a lot of youth players being played in the FA Cup and still putting in a job as well. They beat Cambridge 3-1. A couple of lads that I know from back home played at the weekend as well, Harry Middleton being one of them. I rate Doncaster's chances against Stoke as pretty good. They love a giant killing. Not long ago, about 8 years ago, they played Man City and beat them in the League Cup. They beat Aston Villa, and they even took your side, Arsenal, right to the wire in a cup
penalties,
game. And ended up losing on penalties due to a last gasp. Extra time, Gilberto Silva equaliser, and I remember that as a kid. How important is the FA Cup, Dan, for little sides such as League 1 and League 2 to get that extra bit of money injected and to get a league tie? Obviously, we'll talk about the draw. The draw was not very good. I'll admit that. There's not very many big stand-up ties. The biggest one being probably Manchester United plays Sheffield United at Old Trafford. How important is that for Sheffield United, Dan?
It is. I mean, like as you say, League 1 and 2 sides. Sheffield United are one of the bigger clubs in the Football League, but at the same time, they could really do with that boost. And if they can get a result there, which at this point you wouldn't rule it out at all, would you? I mean, obviously, like on the course we do at uni, we know United fans, we know Sheffield United fans, so that's going to be a really interesting one on our course. Sheffield United, I can see them picking up something if they play to their potential, and it's massive for the club, and it can give them a real boost, and it can even help them sort of sides towards promotion. Like Bradford's running the League Cup ended up inspiring them to get promoted out of League 1. And I just want to mention Eastleigh as well. He won at Stourbridge. That was the only all non-league tie of the second round.
So it was guaranteed non-league side, aren't they?
And it was great to know that we were definitely going to have a non-league side in the third round. They've got Bolton Wanderers at home, and I can see them beating them, to be honest. It'll either be a 4-0 Bolton or a 2-1 Eastleigh type sort of game.
Or a 1-0.
I've spoken to Chris Todd, but I spoke to Chris Todd about a month ago, who's the Eastleigh manager, and he's a lovely bloke. He was there at the FA Cup draw with Steve King, who's the White Hawk manager, and it's just good to see those sides just doing a job in the FA Cup and then playing against some big clubs.
Well, yeah, and obviously the FA Cup still in the lower rounds, but we're moving into the big rounds now with the big sides coming in the early weeks of January. My side, Leeds United, we've got Rotherham, which we're not really happy with. Obviously beaten by Rotherham not long ago, haunted by Neil Redfern.
Not the best record.
No, and but
no wins out of the last 6. Or something like that.
Yeah, well, we beat. We're not really going to talk about the Football League apart from in a couple of seconds. We're going to move on to Hasselbank. But in terms of the Football League, Leeds finally got a result of the weekend, beating Hull City 2-1.
Good result. That.
Yeah, massive result in terms of obviously hopefully turning the season around, because we've had a torrid time of it up until now. And it's just weird how we seem to beat big sides. But yeah, moving into the Football League now, we've touched upon the FA Cup as much as we can. We're gonna just finish up here on the Football League. Hasselbank to QPR. Do you think he can do a job, Matt?
I thought it was a bit of a weird appointment, to be honest.
He did well at Burton.
He did well at Burton, but considering some of the managers they could have gone for, I think it is a bit of a weird one. That if they're looking for promotion back into the Premier League, then I don't know.
Well, obviously Burton flying high in League One. He's done a terrific job with them. Obviously not a massive side. Burton and Coventry, we touched upon League One last week and a bit the week before as well.
Didn't we?
Yeah, we talked a lot about Coventry. We kind of ruled Burton out in terms of discussion time. But for the QPR to take in a player such as Hasselbank,
a manager such as Hasselbank.
Yeah, a manager such as Hasselbank. Obviously, it raises the debate about black managers in high leagues as well, which is good to see. Because obviously there's been a lot of debate about it and about the lack of ethnic managers in the top leagues. But it's good to see Hasselbank working his way up and finally getting himself a good job like that. Do you think QPR will go up now, Dan?
I don't think they'll go up, but Hasselbank's just sort of learning the trade in a very quick way, and it's encouraging to see. Burton came out of non-league a few years ago, and Hasselbank's been there for quite a short period of time, but he's still managed to work wonders there. He's inspired them and he's left them top of League One, so it'll be interesting to see how a new manager takes the reins and whether they can keep Burton afloat in those top positions. But I mean, mainly in the top 2. Let's see if they can go up automatically. It's going to be difficult, but and we never really spoke about them when we were talking about League One automatic promotion a couple of weeks ago. But I think for QPR, it's important for them that they just build stability now and they stop paying players such high wages and they just
concentrate on proper players like young players coming through and English talent as well, instead of just getting silly signings in. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Just really quickly to end the show, I want to ask you both about QPR. Where do you think they're going to finish in the Championship table, Matt?
Where do I think they're going to finish? I don't think they will get promoted, but I think they do. They do have that quality to finish in the playoffs, but I don't see them going up.
To fall at the final hurdle in the playoffs. And what about you, Dan?
About 8th or 9th, I think, just outside the playoffs, and then they can build on that for next season. If Hasselbank gets a solid ground for next year, then he can push on.
Right, we've covered lots today. Enjoyed it today, and thanks for coming in, Matt. It's been good. Looking forward to next week as well. We've got plenty to look forward to in terms of this week's games, Premier League games coming up, as well as what else is there?
Well, there's plenty. Obviously, we're going to touch on the rest of the Champions League and the Europa League. It's the final match days.
Exactly.
We're going to have a little look ahead to Christmas as well, because
a lot of games coming up
next week is our final episode before Christmas. So what we're going to do, obviously, we go home for the Christmas holidays. So what we're going to do there before 3 weeks, our show might end up probably being a little bit longer while we touch on Boxing Day and New Year, etc., etc. It's going to be talking points, just build themselves up throughout the week on top of what we're going to talk about over Christmas. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Inches Wide and subscribe on YouTube, Inches Wide Podcast Online.
Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.